Good afternoon. It is good to have you with me. Yes, sir, Bob. This is a beer with the Old Growler. I'm the Old Growler, Pete from France, and I'm glad to have you with me. Today is it's Thursday, the 28th of May, 2020, and this is the 49th Old Growler, and today is day 72 of our staying in place, shelter in place, isolation, closed down, whatever you want to call it. All the pubs, bars, and taverns here in New York are suspended for a while. I'm hoping just for another couple of weeks. But anyway, being that I can't go out and have myself a beer, a recreational beer, and I tell you, being a journalist covering the beer industry and in the hospitality industry, this has been difficult. Hey, Dave and Mayor, good to see you, kids. Let's see. Having covered the beer and the beverage and hospitality industry for so long, it's kind of tough to go cold turkey, but I have, and so the Old Growler is here to talk about beer. Yes, sir. Now, it's 5 o'clock, which means it is time to have a beer. And this is I hope we hear a hiss on this, because I didn't get over to the ale house today. I'll go tomorrow. But this is left over from yesterday, and I do believe it's Two Roads, Road to Ruin. And so we're going to see if it kept well in the growler. Oh, there was a little bit of a hiss. Let's see if I can. I'm going to try and pour this on camera. Come on, give me a little. There's a little fizz there. What the heck? Life's difficult, so we're going to make it a little less difficult. And we take what we get. Well, anyways, cheers. We're glad to have you with me. It is after 5 o'clock. It is a 5:02, 5 o'clock on the nose, and 5:02, so it's time to have a beer. Cheers. Yes, that is Road to Ruin. From Two Roads, my buddy Phil Markowski out there in Connecticut. And there's a number of beers that we've had from Two Roads, and I'll try and put the links up early so that you can take a look at them. Well, for those of you who are new, welcome. For those of you who are already regulars, I'm glad to have you back. It's a lot of fun, and we've been having a lot of fun. It's for the last 49 weekdays in a row. Although I did take off Memorial Day, the 25th. So technically, I guess this is 48, but it's too complicated, and I can't do math, so it's 49. To my 49th, and tomorrow is going to be really a lot of fun. I think we're going to have to come up with some interesting beers, at least one interesting beer beside the one that we'll be tasting anyway. And when it comes down to tasting, that's really what the Old Growler here really likes to do, is taste beers. And there are two parts to a beer with the Old Growler. The first one is the tasting, and the next part is a chance for me to tell a few war stories and how I became a professional barfly. But the first part, of course, is the tasting. Now, we used to have a lot of tastings over at the Henry Street Ale House over in Brooklyn Heights, and that was, you can go to all of those tastings. They're at the playlist called Tastings at the, I think it's Tastings at the, no, it's Henry Street Ale House Tastings. I believe that's the playlist. And that'll give you an idea of how we did it. And what we did is we would take a look. Well, today we've got on deck is another beer from Torch and Crown. It's a DFM 2, and we'll get to what that's all about. We take a look at the beer label. We take a look at the can label. We take a look at what the information is on it. We get a general idea of what they're trying to sell us. And then Jerry, the bartender and manager, cracks it open, and he and Jim Bennis and usually at least 2 or 3 other folks, and you can see on the videos that they enjoy the tastings as much as we did, and we see if it meets the, we come up with what we think we're going to get, and then if we get it, it's a thumbs up, and if we don't get it, it's a thumbs down. But now that the Old Growler is without his drinking buddies, I'm going to have to do things just a little bit differently. And what it is we crack it. I'll crack it open. Well, first of all, we do exactly what we did before. Take a look at the label, read it, and we won't interpret it, but we'll take a look at it and see what it is telling us is in that can or bottle. And then I'll crack it open, pour it into a glass, taste it, and if it meets expectations, it gets a 2. If it exceeds expectations, and that has happened, it gets a 1. And if it neither exceeds expectations or meets expectations, it gets another number. That's the other number. That's just, yeah, that one. And so that's the way we're going to do the tastings. But first, I got to clear my palate. Oh boy. Well, another beautiful day in paradise, they tell me. I got a chance to walk this morning across the Brooklyn Bridge back and forth. Got the little trek in. Lots of thumbs up to all the people walking by or running by and on the bicycles. I get a lot of return thumbs up from the bicyclists. They really seem to. In fact, we're going to be regulars with some of them. Some of them can see us on the way, and we get an early one. And even better is if they're going in the same direction that we're going in. We get a kind of a thumbs up, a backwards thumbs up. That's kind of nice. It's a great way of saying good morning. But I noticed, and I have, along with the thumbs up, I give a good morning. That's not that hard to do. Some folks have the buds in their ears, and some of them have the Millers in their ears. No, Bud Light, never mind. And so they're preoccupied, and so most of the time it's sight. And that's the funny thing is because in New York City, it's always been, never look anyone in the eye, make no eye contact. And now that we're all wearing masks, that's the only contact we have is either hand gestures or eyes. And smiling eyes, I've seen a lot of smiling eyes, and I've seen a lot of not smiling eyes. But this morning, just as we were getting to the end of Tillery and Adams, at the very end of the walkway for the bridge, I gave a thumbs up and a good morning to a lady of a certain age walking along, and she stopped for a minute. She said, "Oh, thank you." She said, "You're the first person that has actually spoken to me." And it dawned on me, and she went on and thanked us, and we talked a little bit about what it was like and how things were going, just little banter back and forth. Of course, we had our masks on. But it dawned on me that the wearing masks and the 6 feet away is definitely social distancing. But it doesn't have to be antisocial, You can say hello, you can smile, and as I say, you might not be able to see the rest of the face, but you can see it in the eyes. So, folks, get out there and smile, for God's sake, and say something to people. That's my rant for the day. All right, now it's time to do the tasting, and as I said, we have the usual procedure. Take a look at the label, read it. You can see by the art design, pretty much what they're trying to sell you, and we taste it and see if it meets expectations. And after that, as I say, it's the folks who stay behind to listen to my story of becoming a professional barfly. But today I'm going to go back and really set the stage for how I became a journalist and what it was like to be a journalist in the it was in the late 60s, early 70s to today. So I hope you hang out for that. And if you are new here, please, it would be great if you gave me a thumbs up. It would be even better if you subscribed and ring the alarm bell down there. And that way you know every time a new Old Growler goes on record. Okay, now let's get to the tasting. Okay, this is the Old Growler beer tasting. That's what it is. And what we have today is, let's see, I'll get a little bit more information on this one. I'll just keep a semblance of a script here. Feature tasting. Yes, we've got along. We've moved right along here. Well, anyway, and anywho, here we've got. Okay, let's take a look at it. It's just the look of it. It's kind of modern, I guess, is the best description for it. It doesn't look terribly industrial, or it's kind of odd looking. Okay, so anyways, and black, a black label. That's kind of eye catching and stark and hip and all that kind of neat stuff. So it's they're trying to be hip. Okay. Well, that's one of the things that happens. Let's just take care of that. Okay, thank you very much. Should learn to turn the phone off. Okay, DFM2, and it says an experimental hop series, IPA, Torch and Crown Brewing Company. And I can read it a lot better. It's 6.7% alcohol by volume, 1 pint of ale, and I got the. Sometimes it's a little tough for me to read the label on here, but trust me, this is what the label says. Okay, big gains require big risks. The DFM series is our tribute to this bold approach. This IPA series, brewed with new, untested experimental hop varieties from around the world, is a testament to the pioneering spirit of every brewer at Touch and Crown. DFM2 is a highly aromatic, hazy IPA with the assertive citrus rind on the nose and a light tropical finish. Okay, what does that tell me? It tells me that it's a hazy, it's one of those NE IPAs. Some people say New England, some people say, let's see, there's another explanation for it, but New Era is some foolish thing. But anyways, it means a hazy beer, which means that they really don't have to, well, I was going to say filtration system, but I don't want to get into that fight. Okay, untested experimental hop varieties. Now, this is from around the world. Now, that's a real palette to work with, and so I've got no idea what the flavor profile is going to be on that. But they do hint with an assertive citrus rind on the nose, the light tropical finish. So they're talking about there's 2 different types of hops that they'll be using in that. If it's in the nose, that means that it's a very aromatic hop, and if it's in the finish, that means that they have boiled it in the wort so that it is more of a flavor than an aroma. And the fact that they use the word citrus makes me think that, well, I have no idea. All I know is that there's 2 types of citric hop that are in the United States right now, with major ones. One is, of course, Cascade, which has a very grapefruit type of sense. And the other is, let's see, there's Cascade and Citra. And Citra is very almost a lemony type of a thing. And yet, when the Cascade hops on the West Coast, as I say, those are almost like grapefruit. And the Cascade on the East Coast, New York Cascades, have a tendency to taste a little bit more like balsamic vinegar. So it's a very strange thing when you start playing around with hops. Oh, hey, Tom. A Sweetwater IPA there here in Atlanta. Good to see you. Good to see you, my friend. Happy to have you with us. Well, let's have a taste of this. What are we expecting? As I say, it's an experimental hop series, so I'm not quite too sure what we're going to get. It's going to be interesting. I think the real key is if it is balanced. If it's a balanced beer, that's the real key to a well-made beer, no matter what type of hop they use or what type of malt. All right, yes, we've got us a cloudy beer. Yep, with a chance of meatballs. That was a great kid's book. I remember my daughter had that. Actually, my buddy Jim Glass bought it for her. Cloudy with a chance of meatballs. I digress. Okay. There's a very pleasant floral, citric, it is a very pleasant aroma. I'll give it that. Can't quite pinpoint exactly what it is. It's not. It's almost a minty. No, no, not minty. It's wet grass, maybe. That would be the best way to describe it. Wet grass. Well, the kind that grows in the lawn, not the other kind. Okay, let's take a sip. Well, you know, a swig. Well, it's got layers of hops here. There are all kinds of different hop things that are all different tangs. The hop tingles on your tongue, and it gives sometimes metallic, sometimes citric, and we're getting a lot of fun with this one. Greetings, Monica. Good to see you. This is a fun little beer. Let's take another swig. Sit. Doing this may look funny, but it is aerating. It brings air into the mouth and over the tasting area, which allows it to pick up the different flavors and resonate in the nasal passages, which is important as far as flavors go, believe it or not. Now the finish, it's right, it's almost a mango finish on this one. It is really, this is a fun beer. Okay, so let's get right down to it. Does DFM2 Experimental Hop Series IPA by Torch and Crown Brewing Company meet expectations? Yes, it does. Does it exceed expectations? Yes, it does. Therefore, it gets a 1. Fantastic. Boy, this is going to be an empty the can beer. So there we go. And thanks very much for hanging out for the tasting. And for those of you who are interested, please give me a thumbs up, subscribe, and ring the alert bell down there. And that way you won't miss any of these tastings. So I thank you very much for hanging out for the tasting. Now it's time. Oh yes, now it's time to go back in time and find out how the Old Growler became a professional barfly. And first of all, a barfly, that probably would have happened anyway. But a professional barfly, this is someone who hangs out in bars or is very interested and writes about beer, wine, spirits, and the hospitality industry. So how did all this come about, though? How did I become a journalist? Why? Well, let's get down to it. Okay. First of all, today, as you see, this is video, so it's not writing anymore. And yet it is scripted. So it is writing. This is a daily presentation and unedited, and yet eventually these will be split into 2 pieces. One will be the Old Growler tasting, and the other will be my life as a professional barfly. So these pieces will, of course, be edited as well, and that's another way of communicating and writing and getting things together, but that's today. We have cell phones. We have video cameras that can fit in what used to be a cigarette or a business card holder. So that's what we work with today. But let me tell you about what it was like. Well, let me tell you about what it was like when I was a youngster. Yes, sir, Bob, starting out. Okay. Well, today, let's see if I've got it right here. Today, if you've got half a brain and you know how to write, and you can at least point one of these things at objects and punch the little button that says either take picture or take video. And they've also got, as we all know, they've got little apps here for recording, for editing recordings, for editing video. The whole thing it's all right here. All of the information that you could possibly need if you're going to do a story about something or someplace is all here. All you've got to do is search for it first, do your research, then do the stills, the video. You can do a voiceover, send it up into the Ethernet, and you've got a story all done. Okay. In 1976, it would have taken probably 15 people to do a camera that was the size of a freaking suitcase on your shoulder. You would have had sound equipment that had to be strapped onto you, that type of stuff. A good journalist can go anywhere in the freaking world and write a story, write it, dictate it, have video of it, and then when it comes time to leave the country, if it happens to be a very dangerous thing to do, to leave the country, especially after filing your story, you just beat the shit out of this, throw it out, and you're all set. Well, no, that's not like what it was. Not as fast. And not everybody could do it. That was an interesting thing. If you can imagine no cell phones, if you can imagine no internet, the closest thing you had to relatively instantaneous communication was telephone and FedEx, overnight shipping. That was the big thing. Cassette recorders had just come in. Do I have one over here? Yeah, they're right here. Cassette recorders. And you needed one of these little things to make it work. You better hope the batteries were on. I did an interview at, I forget which chef it was in Manhattan, but we did an hour and a half, and it was a fantastic interview, and I had no batteries. Yeah. You need a camera, a 35mm camera, weighed a ton. You needed lenses to go with the camera, so that means you had a camera case. Lenses, filters, and film. Oh, here we go. This is an old film canister. Why do I keep an old film canister? Figure it out. And it was all 35mm, either black or white or Kodachrome. I like to work black and white myself because it was a lot easier. You could process it with just a little bit of light, and you could do proof sheets, which meant that you had essentially you would develop the film in total darkness. You could unreel it into a container. You would pour different chemicals into 3 different chemicals. It was a developer, a wash, and a fixer, and you would do all of that in this little container in the complete darkness. You would unload the film in complete darkness, go in the bathroom, usually put the towel under the door, no light, and then when you got the film developed, you would hang it up to dry, and then and of course you'd have to cut 36 exposures, and you would cut it, and then you would put it on. You would put it on a piece of glass, and then you would have 8 by 10 or 8.5 by 11 pieces of photographic paper. You would put again. This time you could use red light, and you would take the paper out. You'd put it down. You'd put the negatives on top. You'd put the glass on top of that. You'd turn the red light off. Turn the white light or the regular light on for about 10 seconds. Turn the regular light off. Put the red light back on, and you'd have 3 trays similar to the film, which was the developer, the fixer, and the bath. So that was developing, that was film. And so you would end up with a sheet of paper that looked about that size, but it would have strips of film on it. And how you would find out which one you wanted to clip, you would take one of these little devils, and you would look down through to the negative, and yeah, we'll take that one. And you can see this is marked so that you would know exactly how to lay it out when you did any kind of photographic work for magazines. Okay, that's just a, and then as I say, you had the tape machines, so you had to transcribe that. And there were services that could do it, but most of the time you had to sit there and zzz it, zzz it, zzz it. And what did you put your words down on? Oh, ho, ho, ho. Let me tell you kids about a typewriter. It was a portable thing. It was about that size. Some of them, I have a Remington. And what you did is it was a roller, and you put paper in it, and you'd roll the paper up. Now, if you were smart, you would have a piece of carbon paper behind it with another piece of paper so that you could make copies. That was how you made copies. Fun. But before you sat down at your typewriter, before you got your camera out, before you got your tape recorder going, and now you had to carry all of this with you whenever you were going on an assignment, you had to, first of all, research what you were going to do. And then all the information that you would have, you would put on 3x5 cards. So that way you would have information right there so that you could do the interview. And then the 3x5 file cards, after you got finished and you came back, you would get out your tape recorder, you'd listen to it, and on legal paper, you would make notes. And then you would, after that's the transcribe, then you would turn the machine off, then you would sit down at the typewriter and you would type out the notes. And so you had your notes typed out with carbon, and you had your 3x5 cards. Okay. Then you said, oh, I forgot to tell you how to get an article. Oh, that was even more fun. I had a couple of hacks. They call them these days. One was a father-in-law who was in the advertising business. And he keyed me to a magazine called Advertising Age. And I think, no, it was Ad Week. And on the back pages of Ad Week, it was a big format magazine. Most of the time it had products. But at the very back of it, it had new magazines that were coming in, back when there were magazines, or new newspapers. And so what I did is you would go to the back and you would see the new magazine is opening up. It would give the name of the editor, it would give the name of the publisher, it would give the street address, it would give the type of magazine it was, because what they were doing was looking for advertisers. But they were probably also looking for editorial content. Yes, they were, because they would have a little bit, but everybody needs more. So I'd go knock on their door. And another trick that I got, that I learned from hanging out in bars, believe it or not, Costello's. I believe it was on 45th or 46th Street, over near the UN. It was a great little place. It had Ogden Nash's, he paid for his drinks by inscribing cartoons on the wall. And at that time, there was Rupert Murdoch had just bought the Daily Snooze, and so there were a lot of Australians in the place. And I learned a lot about how to be a freelance. You know, these guys were great at it. They started out as freelance in Australia. They'd gone to Sydney, started out with a Star, held out with Murdoch, came to New York. In fact, I had to tell them the fact that New York was a 48-hour town. So if you don't get any sleep, you're going to burn out. And son of a gun, I would say at least half of the ones that they tried too hard and burned out and went back to the main room in Sydney. But they told me that the main idea, if you're going to do a query letter, that was a letter that you would send, that I would send to the magazine editor, publisher, pitching ideas. And they told me to always do three. One you're absolutely sure of, and then one that you liked, and then one that was just kind of a toss, because you targeted exactly the type of audience each magazine had. You knew this. So I learned to do that, and it worked. It worked very well. And searching out the new magazines worked just as well. So that was how I started out freelancing. But once you got the assignment, then you had to go through an editor, editorial, the word editor, and then also there was the illustrations, the photos, and you'd have to go through art directors for that, and process your own film, or find free pictures that you could use. And so you would type all of this up, and you would put it in an overnight packet. You would send it off to the magazine, and if it was usually it's a monthly, you would write it. Say, just for the sake of argument, it would be in January. You would write it. It wouldn't see the light of day till March, and you wouldn't get paid until May. So you were already working on 2 other articles by the time you got paid, but by the time it came out, and by the time you got paid, then it was even funnier. You would go, "What did I get this check for? Let me take a look." And so that was the way life was as a journalist back then. You had more time, number one, and research was telephone and, dare I say the word, libraries. Well, especially business articles that I would write, researching the different breweries and their backgrounds. You would have to go and search through the libraries. I mean, that was and handwrite, the notes. Particularly, I enjoyed the New York Historical Society, because I did a number of articles on old breweries and in the history of New York and New York's pubs, bars, and taverns. And it was a wonderful place. And you didn't go in. There was no dialing up on a keyboard. You went in. There was a card catalog. If you ever watched Ghostbusters, the New York City card catalog, where the thing goes through and all the cards go out and the librarian passes out. That's what it was like. Now, as I say, that you would always get paid 6 months after it was published. Well, no, 6 months after you wrote it, 3 months after it was published. Weeklies, it was a little bit different. And for the brews the brews papers, they paid, back then, if you wrote 1,500 words, you'd maybe get $250 for that. So the object was to write as much and as many as you could, and to move up in the world. Magazines, there were 3 parts. A magazine is a book, and there's the front of the book and the back of the book. The front of the book is usually questions that people write in, or that type of thing, or quick little hints. Then the feature sections are in the middle, and then the back of the book is usually small little follow-up pieces. How to get to here from there, or whatever, or why a particular beer is brewed a particular way, and a little anecdote about the brewer. But that was when the magazines existed. And I'm sure I've seen magazine stands today. I know they're still out there. But I haven't written for one of those in a long time. Online now, well, now we're talking a different story. You may, with a laptop and a cell phone, I can turn out product publications, something to put on the web that looks like 25 people used to have worked on it, which means that anybody can do it, which means that there's an immense amount of crap, pardon me, out there, and you have to look for the relatively good stuff. But that is how I began. That is what journalism was like back then. Not quite as fast, a lot slower. I wouldn't say a lot more research, because we're doing the same research, but it was not as easy to get the research. And you paid for what if you really had to go looking for something and focus, you had more of a tendency to be accurate. You didn't want to be wrong, particularly when the editor would come back to you and say, "Well, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong." No, I rarely had that problem. One problem I did have, and which still exists today, and I wouldn't say it's a problem, but it is, every writer knows it, is that when you turn in a manuscript, the editors, just to do something, editors will just toss out the first paragraph and the last paragraph. And I understand that, having been an editor myself, because what it means is that the first paragraph is you're kind of going, this is what I think. And the last paragraph is, so that's my point, which you've already made. And why confuse people with your hum? Just start with the facts. Which, as I've just proven by speaking to you, that technique hasn't changed at all. Whether it's video, whether it's writing for the screen for like a presentation online on a blog or a vlog or something like that, it's still the same thing. But it's a little bit more, for me, a little bit more confusing. And so, but I am learning, and I'm getting around to it. And eventually, as I say, the Old Growler is going to develop. Well, we are developing our own website, so look forward to that. Well, I'm pretty excited about it. Now, tomorrow, Friday, we have one last, but not least, beer from Torch and Crown, and this is another, oh God, hazy session IPA, which is only 5% alcohol. So this is going to be our little friend tomorrow, and I have a feeling that we're going to celebrate. We're going to celebrate. So either a spirit is going to drop by, or possibly if you guys were hanging out a couple of times ago, brewmaster Jaime Gerardo sent me some fantastic beers, and so I think we're going to maybe crack one of those open. But I want to thank everybody for being here. I see I've got 5 thumbs up. There's 5 people here. This is oh, Rich. Oh, geez, boy, I didn't see you there. I'm sorry, sir. It's good to see Richard and Tom, Mary, Dave, Monica. I salute you all. And for all of you who are watching at a later date, please don't forget to subscribe, thumbs up, share me. Oh, yes, you can. And ring that alarm bell. Okay. Well, I want to thank everybody for showing up today. It was a real pleasure. This was a lot of fun. And if anybody has any questions or thoughts, please send them to me at peter.lafrance@beerbasics.com. Peter, one name, one word, .lafrance, LAFRANCE, at beerbasics, one word, .com. And I'd appreciate that. I really would, because that's how we're going to make some more programs and spread things out. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Good to see you all. For those of you who enjoyed the beer tasting, I hope all of your beers meet expectations. And for the rest of you, I hope you have a great day. Thank you, and look forward to seeing you next time.